What happens when the reality of what a psychopath wants out of the world clashes with our own? Well, that question can take us in a veritable hodgepodge of both Resident Evil and Silent Hill. Funnily enough, this game we are covering today comes from the mind of Resident Evil creator Shinji Mikami, a series that Mikami attempted to take to strong survival horror roots where he wanted the player to feel powerless, facing almost unkillable foes in claustrophobic spaces with diminished ammo to keep you running and not gunning. Pretty much a perfect fit for a why you wouldn't survive scenario. So what if a contraption made to link people's minds went worldwide and left all of us into its infernal telepathic machinations? Let's find out. Today, we are telling you why you wouldn't survive Evil Within's STEM system. Now, there are definitely some sleep paralysis type demons out in the STEM world that might try to bog you down, but you can fight them off with today's sponsor, GamerSupps. At first, I thought it was only about the gamer energy, the waifu cups, and the ramen, but then I saw this AFK shit and was like, whoa, sleep aids without melatonin to make me dependent on it? Sign me the hell up. I could really use some comfortable Z's with me researching nightmarish scenarios all the time. You can get your own AFK raspberry tea flavor right now and get 10% off of it with code WOW at checkout with GamerSupps. Click the link in the description and pin comment, and again, that code WOW for 10% off to get the AFK flavor and make your sleeps STEM into a silent night. Now, let's get into a violent fight. Dating back over a century, an enigmatic shadow organization by the name of Mobius held ties with major companies and governments across the world, manipulating media, high-ranking officials, and more to meet their needs, all while remaining in anonymity, allowing only new members via invitation, much like the Stonecutters. Using their expansive wealth and connections, they would slowly but surely work towards the secret institution's ultimate goal, the complete and utter enslavement of the world's entire population. To do so, they began the development and hopeful implementation of a connective mental network known as STEM, a project devised and worked on for numerous years by the warped mind of Ruben Victoriano, aka Ruvik, an individual that was gifted at birth but suffered tragedy after tragedy, from the burning of his family farm by angry townspeople that disfigured him while his sister sacrificed her own life to save him, to his father imprisoning him to prevent the world to seeing his hideous physical and mental state, to constant hallucinations of his dead sister plaguing him for the rest of his life. Ruvik would take to conducting experiments on human minds alongside one Dr. Marcel Jimenez, a physician that knew his family well for their continued donations to Beacon Mental Hospital. Dr. Jimenez would steal Ruvik's work and publish it as his own due to Ruvik's incarcerated state. When Ruvik's magnum opus of the STEM project was nearing its completion, the good doctor fully betrayed his young cohort to Mobius. The reason I discuss Ruvik's personality and psychological state in summarized detail is due to the nature of STEM itself. STEM being an intricate system linking numerous consciousness at once via a bunch of terminus pods that people get into like bats. Ruvik had intended for it to be used to better mental health and unify people. However, it would find a more nefarious purpose. For you see, in order for STEM to operate, it relies on having a central mind to be the core. One brain to set the foundation of a mental network from which all other minds can enter and interact. The main requirement for this central motherboard brain is for them to either be a complete psychopath with a complex mind to work off of, or that of an innocent and uncorrupted child. In the first incarnation of Mobius manipulating STEM to work, Ruvik would be the central catalyst. And with his tortured past and subjects from a mental hospital being many recipients subjugated into STEM to add their own psychosis and more, well, the implications are terrifying, especially with the realization that this STEM network can not only be mentally connected to via Ethernet or direct means, but via mental Wi-Fi, expanding outward in a larger radius with each additional mind connected to it telepathically. each brain in the network powering it further and further. It is stated that one person's mind can generate 100 exabytes of memory for the system. For it to have 5G towers of influence across the world, it would require 2 million exabytes, meaning a total of no less than 20,000 people alone would be enough to envelop all of Earth. And with the expanse of a wireless connection becoming stronger with each recipient, it would only be a matter of time till it breaks the mental floodgates and becomes an unstoppable snowball situation. The bridge between reality for anyone caught within STEM's network would be blurred frequently until making the full-on jump, thanks to a high-pitched frequency that will completely control our subconscious. But what is so bad about our minds randomly ping-ponging there until fully submerged? What about a full cyber universe fueled by a psychopath or a child, and a full mental hospital's thoughts could stem into this why you wouldn't survive scenario? Well, purely for how it manipulates the world and the people within it, creating something new from the mind of the core brain, and how it transforms its victims to become bloodthirsty, psychotic killers. Either that, or power-hungry individuals with iron wills entering to use the system's abilities for their own. Regardless, most, if not all, recipients will have their mental faculties eroded while in the STEM. Described as disruptions within the STEM system, despite affecting everyone, it can cause long-term and even permanent psychological effects and physical in the STEM world that alter the person through a process known as corruption. While the first game kept itself to the relatively small quarters of Beacon Mental Hospital, the true eventuality of this network is its inevitable enclosure of every human mind. This is where our why you wouldn't survive scenario today will be derived from, as most, if not all of us forced into STEM will reel from its effects to some degree, shape, or form. Depending on your mental health and fortitude, will your fate ultimately be decided, although time will also be a factor. So let's hypothetically say that under our nose, maybe through mass abductions of tons of people and kidnapping via Mobius, or luring a large crowd of people of a concert or sporting event into a close proximity to a STEM origin point like that found at the mental hospital in the games, so suddenly everyone is inducted into the world of STEM because 20,000 or more people are powering the system. What would happen to everyone as they are inducted into the world of STEM? The symptoms would start with migraines and minor to severe memory loss, getting more and more pervasive as time goes on, with a person becoming erratic and less like themselves until most of their personality is completely wiped from existence, never coming back. At the point of total mental destruction, will a person transform into one of many different types of STEM hostiles depending on many different factors, going from their mental makeup, their mentality as a person, and the person that the STEM is deriving from at its core. For a majority of the population, for people that have weak wills and minds, for a lot of people out there watching right now, will you become one of two entities by the name of the Lost or the Haunted? If caught within the reality and core of a psychopath, then most of us will become the latter, the haunted, forming upon the full domination of a person's mind, or when they die and their emptied out husk of a brain is restructured to become a killing machine, described as them becoming the epitome of evil that their mind had perceived, mutating to look like horrific and butchered cadavers to reflect that. The haunted will scour the land looking for victims to eviscerate, chop up, shoot up, and ultimately cannibalize anyone not plagued with the corruption, specifically eating their brains in a fashion similar to Return of the Living Dead's zombies, possibly as a way to lessen the pain of total brain death. Despite being almost mindless vacuums of people, they retain a modicum of intellect, enough to use a variety of different weapons, speak in disjointed fashions, and will even pretend to be dead or inanimate to get the drop on people. Think of the crazies, and they're infected with equal levels of violence but less words to take up the space. On the other side of the spectrum, a hypothetical can also be nipped in the bud. Say you're thinking of either unlinking the root brain from the stem network to shut it down, or killing the host entirely. Well, doing so would be catastrophic for anyone within STEM. Destabilization of STEM will turn most people into what are known as lost. While the haunted are cannibalistic partakers of the purge, the lost are truly mindless and even more feral creatures, similar in nature, yet more dangerous and way more prone to mutations. These being mere peons and foot soldiers of people just going crazy left and right, the evolution of these lost and haunted turning and creating new twisted abominations will make survival even less likely over time. While the mind of a psychopath can be someone like Rubik, others can manipulate the system just from their presence, and new life forms can stem from other individuals within. The haunted have been shown to transform into different variants, including kamikaze types that explode in proximity to you, bloating to large proportions to withstand hellacious damage. Creatures known as cadavers can be born from the bloated core of a dead haunted. So even if you kill some of these haunted, they can create new life forms from their corpses. These cadavers can crawl around on all fours, swelled with pulsating pustules, completely blind and relying on echolocation to hunt prey. Its exposed and elongated ribcage will extend to ensnare you. Once they have a hold of you, the pustules will hit critical mass, exploding like a fragmentation grenade and killing you in an instant. Haunted can also camouflage themselves, turning completely invisible before attacking their prey, with tentacles spouting out from their head to try and annihilate unsuspecting victims. Some mutants of the stem can seek to become a faceless and inferior but still powerful hooded beast, a cheap copy of the core mind. While they do not seem threatening at first, once they have sight of you, they can summon a horde of otherworldly hands from the ground like waves at you. If this nightmare horde of fingers is able to get a few of these appendages latched onto you, your death will be certain, as each prolonged finger will surround you and instantly rip you to pieces. The lost are no stranger to change. Hell, they take the term transformation way more seriously, probably due to the instability of the network spurring more spontaneous results. The first of which, stemming from women, is the hysteric, looking like a Left 4 Dead witch in almost every way, shape, and form, minus its bloated skull. It's this swelling of the head that makes trauma to the cranium almost impossible, meaning attacks to its frail-looking body will be necessary. Much like the witch, it does have sharpened claws that it will use to attack you, as well as having a fascination of knives that it will use to slash you apart, killing you in seconds flat. For those of you that are greedy, lustful, or overcome with gluttonous appetites, then you will turn into a grotesque form known as the glutton. Numerous limbs spurting out of your body with no purpose as your frame enlarges to adapt dozens of small and large boils. Think basically a boomer, but with a thick, harder outer shell. Withstanding gunfire for a bit, once it draws close enough to you, will it explode, becoming a giant bomb, hurling and entwining intestines and high-speed muscles at victims to kill them instantly. Those that are directly manipulated by power-hungry psychological prophets can be turned into disciples, muscular brutes clad in molten armor and wielding immense strength. When they are not praying to their new lord, they will spew splashes of white-hot fire at you to incinerate you. Their very blood is lava, so harming them only allows them to harm you at long ranges. Their molten flesh allows them to create lava rocks as armor to shield them from damage. If you are caught by them, they can easily crush your skull in seconds flat or bear hug you to cause you to burn to death. Those with dissociative identity disorder will horribly change into an alter ego, where a normal human looks like it was half fused with a rabid beast in a painful manner. The two parts to this being are separately alive and conscious of one another, hating one another in constant agony. They are looking to take out their aggression on any sane individual nearby. The monstrous side of the beast has sharpened fangs to rip your throat soda. It can spit out highly corrosive acid to melt away your flesh and bone, and will produce giant tentacle-like appendages to whip and slice you up. Alter egos will also have their consciousness cast into the stem winds, and will latch on to any babies or infants caught within the system, turning these infants into smaller versions of themselves, but now crawling on the ground, and when they have sight of you, will launch their entire body towards your face and explode. Now, trauma experienced by the core mind that makes up the stem will also manifest itself in a horrific display known as the trauma, a flesh hybridization of former man and shackled wood and hooks. Running super fast, it will use the weapons attached to it to swipe at you. Fish hooks like Wolverine claws to gouge your flesh, and a harpoon on its back to reel you in like a roadhog and finish you off via impalement. It prefers working in pairs of its own kind because trauma loves company. Murderers, or those with a penchant for anger outbursts, can become sadists, chainsaw-wielding psychopaths who want nothing more than to see anything ripped apart via the chainsaw, meat cleave, or leading you into deadly, saw-like traps that can have you in pieces in no time. Sadists can transform an environment to become like a saw game. Sadists can also learn to wield guns and weapons of any type, and are hellbent on only killing. They are indiscretionary. They slaughter fellow monsters and anything else around them. Forming from the inner opposite gender personalities of both men and women comes the anima, a wisping mistress clad in white and long hair like an onryo, appearing before those struggling with themselves. She will distort the visions around her, chilling the air and phasing in and out of existence seemingly at random. She does this to disorient and craze her victims to play with them, until eventually she grows tired of them and ultimately grabs hold of them. Her touch can instantaneously mutate you into the simplest form of the lost, eradicating your consciousness in seconds. Evading her will prove to be near impossible as she phases through walls and solid objects, laughing maniacally as she rushes you at hyperspeed while singing Claire de Lune. Mindless self-indulgence takes place with the heresy, a haunted that took Stem's corruption to an insane degree where it mutated into a spider-like giant abomination. Any corrupted being it comes into contact with will be assimilated instantly. This is one of a few beasts also unable to be controlled in any way, shape, or form. Growing large and more unstable with each consumption, it will berserk its way to sane victims to completely destroy buildings, defenses, and more. For those it cannot reach, it will spawn large insects to attack prey and slow them down. Its gigantic frame and hardened skin make it nearly impervious to all types of damage. Hodgepodges of mutilated victims will be a common occurrence. Two women can be fused together to make a lament. A human centipede-looking being with stretched and melted skin, it will scream out loud enough to deafen victims, grabbing them so it may vomit copious amounts of acid on their face to kill them. As they wander around, their bodies will also produce highly toxic gases to hopefully asphyxiate people and cause them to either choke to death or hear these auditory coughs to hunt them down. For people or core brains that have a strong desire to basically be ghosts and not seen by others, then a quill can be created. A tentacled monster that camouflages itself to sneak up on prey. Its strength alone could crush the bones of its victims, but its true threat is how it lies in wait to grab people and slowly drag them off to eat them. Earlier I mentioned Silent Hill similarities. Well, the Keeper is the pyramid head your mom says you have at home. Born from destructive thoughts kept bottled up in one's mind, the Keeper wears an iron safe on its head to protect itself. It teleports between dozens of safes it lays out in an environment to surprise attack victims with its large, bladed meat tenderizer. It sets up barbed wire traps around to trap and mutilate you so you are easier to reach. If it is somehow unable to get to you, it will teleport to another safe to emerge from by snapping its own neck, meaning it cannot be killed unless you kill it. Once you are killed by Pyramid Head with the safety features on, will your head be cut off and be added to its decapitation bag. The core minds and powerful psychos can create monstrous beings too. Obscura is a camera-headed, near necromorph-looking being that moans seductively as it tries to get the perfect snapshot, using its flash to both blind prey and somewhat stop time in the immediate area, and it will stop at nothing to impale you and then take a picture of your disemboweled corpse as the life drains from your body. The haunted can sometimes be seen slapping corpses together in an attempt to create guardians. Being a combination of female murder victims, this tank of multi-ladies will also wield a giant buzzsaw. It will laugh non-stop and begin to howl when spotting a victim, hoping to saw them to pieces when they are within distance. There are many more monsters with wildly different capabilities. There are a lot, like the effigy using its power lines to electrocute you to death, the Watcher drowning you in ghost baby gravy, Harbingers burning you to death, and amalgam alphas annihilating your ass. But you get the point stated on how so many monsters can appear seemingly out of nowhere to kill you in an endless amount of ways, usually in bisection or disembowelment, but still a deadly end. A lot of these monsters being born from the imaginations of individuals like Mara Castellano, Theodore Wallace, and Stefano Valentini, all with wildly different walks of life and mindsets, but all creating STEM monsters of others out of nowhere or themselves. Myra unintentionally had her maternal instincts transform her into the matriarch, a giant being transmogrified from the overwhelming desire to protect her daughter, capable of being dismembered and then reassembled just to smush anything before it. Then we have Father Theodore Wallace's cultist leadership and thirst for world domination that allowed him to stay sane while he reaped the benefits of the STEM network by willing monsters into existence to serve his needs. The mad artist Stefano used his psychopathic tendencies to create art from mutilation and death to make his own artistic renditions of soldiers. These individuals, whether with good intentions or ones that Netflix would make a 4-part series over, would have reasonings and mentalities that would put your survival chances near zero with what they can create, especially since 2 of them were working for Mobius, the center of all this. Those that were a part of Mobius were psychologically trained to withstand the detrimental effects of STEM before it was sent out, so they are way more resistant to the effects than most of us, expanding their influence and forces as you struggle to survive against both them and keeping your sanity against the reigning corruption of the system. Now, if you believe yourself to be worthy of joining Mobius through invitation, receiving training, and then you try to betray them, you just wanted to get the training out of them, well, you'll be out of luck, as Mobius implants kill switches on all recipients of the STEM project in their brain. Now, why would they do this? Well, it's so you either serve their purposes or have your brain insta-fried. You cannot go against them once you are a part of them. Hell, things could be even worse for some. Maybe you are transported to STEM upon induction or other vectors. Some subjects transported into STEM will be taken to inaccessible levels of the simulated realm. Escape from this level is going to be impossible, dooming a person to a purgatory-like state. Think of it like Schrodinger's box, except with your own life, and that's what other people are trying to perceive of what happened to you. Will you eventually die from massive psychosis, hunger, dehydration, or exhaustion, or will you dwell infinitely in mental purgatory? Now, if you do survive here, other unlucky denizens that transformed into something called albedos that look like humans that have melted into something that looks like titty milk, which is a bangin' flavor with Gamersups, our sponsor today. Get 10% off your order for this wonderful flavor by going to Gamersups and using code WOW at checkout. You can get the creme raspberry vanilla goodness in your mouth by clicking the description. Wait, that's not titty milk on screen though. That's ectoplasm. But you will be submerged in this white sticky substance and then pummeled to death by the albedos. The STEM system has an endless cavalcade of carnage that you probably will never realize you even entered into. Wireless signals and frequencies being emitted after 20,000 people were used to make a global indoctrination Wi-Fi signal. Most becoming mindless drones transforming to become monsters at the beck and call of a shadow organization, fueling their need to control mankind. If you're a weak-willed, you will go crazy and mutate in a short amount of time. If you are strong-willed, you will have to face the abominations that everyone else turns into or becomes a part of. All this going on while psychotic people play games with our minds and our now merged STEM bodies across this system that has taken over the entire planet. There is no getting away once our brains have picked up this frequency. If you are not up to the task to fight with everything you've got, mentally, emotionally, and physically, then Mobius and the monsters and the psychopaths will definitely wipe you from existence with your mind and matter, never minding as you are part of something, I guess, I wouldn't say greater, your consciousness just being memory that fuels STEM in its world empire of mental projection monsters. And since this shadow organization of Mobius is behind all of this and they have a lot of power behind the scenes, I don't see most of us even seeing this coming before we are all just a part of STEM. That wraps up today's look into the evil within. You guys have requested it for a long time now, so it was fun going through. What do you want to see next? Let me know down below, and special thanks to my Patreon patrons and YouTube channel members for supporting me. By donating, they are permanently etched into the Wow Such Gaming memories here, and you can do that too by throwing in $1. Hell, you can even see videos up to a week early. Also, Chago, always thanks for editing today's video. If you want to, you can check him out over on Quick Flicks, that is his channel. And until next time, never forget to stay happy, stay healthy, keep up the great work, and stay wow.